Oh, by the way, did you know that the motto of the French Navy is to the water, it is the R. Or as they say in France, allô, sailor. So we got to travel back. Ow! Yes, you did read that correctly. Beaten by a woman with a pitchfork on the beautiful Pembrokeshire Coastal Trail. There's also a case of mistaken identity, some drunken foreigners, and the French being embarrassed by a bad case of wind. This is one of the funniest true stories I've ever heard, and most people won't have heard about it or heard about its hero, Jemima Nicolas, who was a real person. So in this video, I'm gonna go and explore a little bit of the beautiful coast path and tell you this story. So let's go back to the beginning. Ooh. Don't want to fall down there. So just up there is Fishguard Fort, and the town of Fishguard is over there. And this quiet, beautiful, peaceful looking coastal area was actually the focus for one of the most significant events in British history. And again, it's an event that you've probably never heard of. And I regret coming down here because to get down here, I had to go through some bushes with a lot of thorns on them. So we got to travel back. Ow! To 1797. The French and the English don't much like each other.
What a strange person. I fart in your general direction.
At this point in history, we're just 18 years away from France and Britain having a big fight that would eventually go on to inspire ABBA to write one of the greatest songs in history. I'm free! I'll give you a quick look at the fort. Here's the fort. No idea what that is. Clue. I'm guessing this would have been the sauna, probably. Some cannons. Nice little place. So back to 1797. So the French weren't the only people who didn't really like the English at the time. The Irish also didn't care much for them, and some Irish Protestants decided to team up with their Irish Catholic friends against the British. And that might surprise you if you know a little bit about Irish history, but yes, the very first major organised Irish nationalist group was the cross-community effort, and they were called the United Irishmen. And the religious divide that's most often associated with Ireland in many ways was actually a class divide, and in many ways was actually artificially created by the ruling classes to divide the Irish and stop them from uniting. I've taken a wrong turn. I don't think I needed to go up this hill. So what on earth does this have to do with the French? Well, this is where this starts to get really interesting. By the way, the reason I'm in Wales this week is not just to make this video. I'm in Wales this week for a very special reason, because back in April I was over here and I was shooting a documentary about an ultra runner called Sana Duffy, and she was attempting to run the entire 186 miles of the trail in under 50 hours. Shot the documentary is now finished, and we're having a showing of it on Wednesday night in her hometown of Milford Haven.
I think they liked it.
But that documentary is also now online. So if you want to see a lot more of the Pembrokeshire Coastal Path and hear Sana's story, well, I will link that video down in the description. Ooh, I see horse. I see horse. I see horse. That's kind of cool. Okay, so this is where the French connection would come in, because the French thought it would be hilarious if they sent 15,000 troops over to Ireland to support the United Irishmen in a revolt against the British. This would really cheese off the British, and the French would find it hilarious. But at the same time, in order to provide a distraction for that invasion, they decided they would send 1,400 troops over to invade Bristol. Bristol at the time was the second largest city in England. They would go over, capture the city, and burn it to the ground, and then run away while laughing. That was the plan, but the French made several absolutely ridiculously disastrous mistakes, which were going to result in absolute chaos. I feel I should probably apologise to my French friend for the ridiculous stereotyping within this video. So, sorry Yannick, but I'm going to do it anyway. I hear you're racist now, Stephen. That's where I arrived last night. I got the ferry over from Rosslare to Fishguard. 4-hour drive down to Rosslare, now 3.5 hour ferry crossing across. Well, this feels like that bit in Jurassic Park 3 where they get attacked by the pterodactyls. Which reminds me, why is it impossible to hear a pterodactyl going to the toilet? Because the P is silent. Alright, so the first mistake that the French made was to massively underestimate the weather around Britain and Ireland in the winter. They set sail in February, and of those 15,000 troops that were supposed to land in Ireland and support the United Irishmen, zero, none of them made it ashore because they got off the coast of Cork. They were battered by storms and heavy winds. They looked out and they said, "C'est impossible! La mer c'est furious!" And they turned around, sailed back to France for some wine. C'est la vie. Ah! There's a big pile of horses in the middle of the path. Hello! Hello, horses. Ooh, you get flies all over your nose. Here, let me swat them off. Oh, good horse. Yeah, I don't like the flies either. I think this is the first time I've encountered horses or ponies when I've been out having a trail run and they haven't tried to bite me. You're nice. Nah. Do you want to come through? No, I'm not joking. Stay there. Don't let the French see you. That's Sunday lunch to the French. No! Alright, we've got 15,000 French troops now sailing back to France. It feels like the plan has completely failed. Except they're forgetting about something. The 1,400 troops currently merrily sailing their way to Bristol. Nobody thought to warn them. Maybe WhatsApp was down that day or something. And I say merrily, it was merrily until the French began to shout, "Il y a beaucoup de vent!" It's very windy. I apologise so much for my terrible French. But once again, they're hit by storms, they're hit by winds, and these extremely potent gusts push them right around the coast, right past Bristol, and round into Pembrokeshire and towards Fishguard, which is going to be the site of their ultimate humiliation and embarrassment. And Fishguard just happens to be the home of one Jemima Nicolas, a 47-year-old cobbler who has spent her life swinging a hammer, shaping leather, bashing nails into boots. It's tough work. She was tough. You would not want to mess with a 17th century cobbler. She was probably jacked. And the French, well, they made another mistake. The French assumed that as the Welsh didn't really much care for the English at this point, that as soon as the French landed, they'd be greeted as saviours, and the Welsh would join the French and revolt against the British, and they would be one great big revolting group together. But the mistake the French made, that much as the Welsh didn't like the English, they liked being invaded by the French even less. Another mistake the French made, and this was possibly one of their biggest, was that they did not send quality troops to invade England because it was just a diversion force. So they literally sent their worst troops. The majority of them were actually just pulled out of prisons and penal colonies. You get the idea. These were not quality, disciplined troops, highly motivated. These were men who were not expecting to survive the mission they'd been sent on. Ooh. A little bit overgrown down in here, but Don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. So many steps. There's a seal down there. Hi, seal. You might be curious about how I'm getting some of those shots where there's a camera following me and chasing me, and that is with this tiny little drone. This is the HOVERAIR PROMAX, and this is the lightest weight drone you can get that shoots the highest quality footage. This shoots up to 8K. There is a 4K version as well, which is slightly cheaper, but this will shoot up to 4K. It's autonomous, which means you can fly it without a controller. You just pick whatever you want it to do. Do you want it to follow you? Do you want it to rotate around you? Do you want it to zoom up in the air, do a droney? You push the button, it takes off in your hand, it flies, it does whatever you've told it to do. It'll come back, you hold your hand out, and it'll automatically land on your hand. But not only that, you can control this just with your phone. You can connect your phone over Wi-Fi and fly it. You can't fly it really, really far, but I find for video shoots like this where I want to move as fast and light as possible, this is such a great option. This weighs a fraction of the weight of even my lightest drone because I don't need to bring a controller with it, and that means it's perfect for running. That's the size of it. It's not much bigger than one of my ears. Well, okay, it's a bit bigger than my ear, but it's still a tiny drone. And it shoots like really good quality footage. HOVERAIR make a few different drones like this, but this is the top premium bestest of the best that they make. And so far, there isn't really anything else on the market that has the exact features this has. So I found it absolutely perfect for shoots like this where I'm running and I want to remain as fast and light as possible. So thanks very much to HOVERAIR for sponsoring this video. If you want to find out more about the PROMAX or their other range of drones, you can go check out the link in the description. Ow, 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 ow. My legs are getting stung to bits. There's so many nettles down low and you just can't see them. Ooh. It is kind of serious. The French sailed into Fishguard Bay where they expected to be welcomed with open arms, but the only thing that welcomed them was a volley of cannon fire from Fishguard Fort where we were earlier. So they turned around and fled back up the coast and ended up here. And at 2 AM, the French finally end up here, and I'm going to pronounce this completely wrongly, Carrick Awasted Head. I'm so sorry. Maybe that is accurate. You can let me know. And it's a terrible place to launch an invasion from because look, there are cliffs everywhere, either side. Cliffs to the left of me, cliffs to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with the French. So the French scramble up the cliffs anyway and immediately try and start their invasion. And they start their invasion by going over and invading some of the local farmhouses. And they find something they really weren't expecting. They discover that the farmhouses are stuffed to the gills with Portuguese wine because a few weeks previous, a Portuguese merchant vessel had been shipwrecked off the coast and the locals have been gleefully collecting up the bottles of wine that have been washing ashore ever since. So the French, a lot of them anyway, being French and unmotivated, immediately decide to forget about the invasion, pop the tops of the bottles and get drunk. And a significant number of the invading force is then going farmhouse to farmhouse, eating and drinking their way around the countryside, becoming more and more inebriated. Meanwhile, down in Fishguard, word has got out that the French have been invading and they're not happy about it. Jemima Nicolas here and she says, I'm gonna do something about this. So she grabs her pitchfork, sticks on a pair of what you can be guaranteed are very sturdy boots, as she's a cobbler after all, and marches off with a pitchfork. She finds 12 French soldiers lolling around, drunk in a field, confronts them with a pitchfork. The French look up, I mean, they're having a great time, and they see an angry Welsh woman with a very pointy stick pointing at them, and being French and enjoying themselves tremendously, they say, "C'est la vie," and immediately surrender. So Jemima marches 12 drunk French soldiers down into Fishguard, locks them in the local church, and then heads back out with more townsfolk to round up more of the drunk French. Now, the rest of the French force stays down here, and eventually some English redcoats, English soldiers turn up. There's about 300 of them in total. Some of them came from the Fishguard fort, but they're going to be no match for the French. But Jemima has an idea, and it's an absolutely genius idea, because as soon as the French catch sight of those 300 redcoats, c'est la vie, and surrender. All of them. Why? Why did they surrender? And this is what's so clever. I love this bit. Okay, so this is what a redcoat soldier looks like. Okay. And then this is what a traditional Welsh woman's dress looks like. And then this is what they both look like from a distance if you're a little bit French and quite drunk. Jemima had the genius idea of getting all the local women, get them to put on their traditional clothes and march alongside the English redcoats. And to the French, instead of 300, it looked like 800 to 1,000 coming over the hills. And so they surrendered. It's brilliant. And the best part of this is that this story ends up with a peace treaty that's signed between the French and Great Britain, and it's signed in the local pub, and the local pub is still there to this day. And I think that is one of the best, funniest historical stories I've ever heard, and I don't know why more people don't know about it. Jemima Nicolas in many ways should be as famous as, she's kind of like the Welsh Joan of Arc. Well, I mean, if Joan of Arc was 3 times older, and instead of going up and smoke, she went down to the pub for a smoke and a pint with the lads. Okay, they're not that similar at all, but absolute local legend. And Jemima's remembered as a local legend to this day. And there is an official person who plays her and enacts her every year. They have a thick French chasing with a pitchfork. It's brilliant. There's a cafe in town named after her. There's a memorial stone in the church, but yet it's a story that I guess most of you will have never heard. I'd never heard it. And speaking of local legends, got to remind you, remember Sana I mentioned earlier, who did that amazing trail run, trying to run 186 miles in under 50 hours? That's something worth the title of local legend for. If you want to watch that story, I will link that documentary, which is called Sana Against the Tide, down in the description. Oh, I always underestimate how long these types of videos are going to take. I thought it would take me, let's see, just check my watch here. Yeah, I thought it would have taken me about maybe 2 hours to get out here and recording that as I went, and then to record the bit at the stone. I've been out for 4.5 hours. Sun sets in an hour, and it's going to take me at least 2 hours to get back, I think. So I'm going to go back this way, find it on the map, on my mapping app. It looks like there's a sort of a cross-country trail, which will maybe be a bit quicker than the coast path, because, well, actually the coast path's been pretty slow in places because of how much it's overgrown at the minute. So maybe this will get me back quicker. By the way, for anybody wondering what mapping app I use, there's an app called Hiker, and I've got all my like proper outdoor hiking maps are offline on it, and it's great. And I also have a discount code for Hiker, so yeah, if you want to get proper offline maps for your outdoor adventures, I have a link down in the description. We'll get you a bit of a discount. Yeah, with historical stories, there's always details that get left out, and there's always details which are disputed as well. You check 2 different sources, you'll get 2 different versions of the story. So for me, what I do is, for these kinds of stories, I basically absorb all the different tellings, and then I tell my version of the story, taking what I think are the best bits from it all, and hopefully it's close enough to the truth as can be possible. I've got, for every finger you can hold up onto the sun, that equals 10 minutes. So I can get about 4, maybe 5. So yeah, I've got less than an hour before sun sets, and then you got about half an hour after the sun sets of light. So at most 90 minutes of light to get back. Oh, this is a jungle. What is that? Is it? That's a mole. That was a very, very flat mole. You can see its little scoopy paws. That's the first time I've ever seen a mole, and it's dead and flat. Speaking of dead, I'm currently booking myself into a campsite for the night so I can have a proper shower. I should probably just, you know, stop and walk and do this. Yes, there are lots of places you can just park for free in a van, but if it's possible, I think it's a good idea to try and at least spend a couple of nights of your van trip in an actual campsite, because that way you're contributing to the local economy. That will encourage the locals to feel more favourably towards people who are in vans, and also you've got access to showers and won't smell like a pig. My van is away over there. I just scared the wits out of some poor Welsh guy who's out walking his little sausage dog. He had earpods in, so he couldn't hear me because they're noise cancelling, and it was about, I don't know, a good distance away, and I said, hello, excuse me. Didn't hear me, and then I got within a couple of feet of him, and I was just, hello. He jumped out of his skin. Where are we going? This is quite the mystery tour. Mystery tour. Oh, that water is beautiful looking this evening. I really am starting to lose it. Oh, right, I've just about made it back before dark. Done about 11.5 miles by the time I got back. Not very fast, but yeah, I'm quite tired. It's been a warm, long, hot, sweaty day. I'm looking forward to getting a shower. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. I'm so tired. Oh no, there's a very disappointed duck coming this way. No, I don't have any bread. I'm sorry. Nope, don't keep coming. I feel like such a terrible person now. The French sailed into Fishguard Bay where they expect it to be opened. Welcomed. Idiot. It's such a great story. Jemima, what a hero. I'm in so much trouble if I don't leave soon. In fact, they just pulled them out of prisons and penal qualities. Penal qualities? This is not going well.